no, I'm not a hockey expert.
Rockford's GM, Mark Bernard, is on the bench. Why is Mark Bernard on the bench?
As many of you know, I was an enforcer for the Rockford IceHogs.
Stand proud, Rockford! You have a hockey champion!
Welcome into episode number 8 of Hog Talk, the official podcast for the Rockford IceHogs. I'm team broadcaster Mike Philp, the host of the podcast, coming to you on a formal episode. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll notice that I am dressed in my IceHogs warm-up pregame show regalia here. We just got done recording the pregame show once again, like we were last week, and so I'm in my suit and tie once again for those listening on podcast. If you are listening on podcast or watching on YouTube, please do us a favor, or like and subscribe, whatever channel, whatever platform you're listening on. Leave us a review as well. That helps us out, kind of gauge our audience and gauge who's tuning in. We've had an increased number of listeners and viewers each of the last couple episodes, and so that's been exciting for us to see. We want to eventually get to the point where we're averaging around 500 or so consumers of the podcast per episode. We're still a couple hundred away from hitting that mark, but our numbers have swollen a little bit these last couple of shows. We've had some great guests on over the last couple of episodes as well. Last week, it was Brett Seney, one of the studs for the IceHogs, who right after we interviewed him got bumped up to the National Hockey League, so a little Hog Talk bump there for scenes. Played 4 games up there with the Blackhawks before coming back down and playing with the IceHogs this last weekend. But our guest for this episode is Luke Philp. He was the team MVP for last season, set career highs in several offensive categories, had a great campaign with the IceHogs, 29 goals to lead all IceHogs players, and he was the top-line center for Rockford throughout much of the campaign, playing alongside Brett Seney and David Gust, amongst others. Unfortunately for Philper, he tore his Achilles this past offseason while he was doing training. He tells the story of how it happened coming up in just a little bit, but he's been chomping at the bit to get back out there, going through his rehab, and I was able to catch up with him just a little bit ago so he could kind of fill us in on where he's at, how he's feeling, and also talk about his career, talk about his first NHL game, his first AHL point in front of a whole bunch of friends and family in his hometown last year with the Blackhawks. So all that and more is coming up in just a moment in our interview with Luke Philp. But also wanted to just kind of give you a quick snapshot of where we're at in the season in case you've missed the last couple of weekends. It's been a productive couple of weekends on the road for the IceHogs. 2 weekends ago, Rockford split a pair of games down in Texas with the Texas Stars. The IceHogs won 1 of 2 against the then division-leading Stars. And then this past weekend, Rockford took 2 games away from the Grand Rapids Griffins, 1 in regulation and 1 in overtime back at Van Andel Arena. So a successful start to January here for the Hogs. They have now won 3 of their last 4 games. They've won 3 in a row. First time the Hogs have done that since back in November. And they're also above 500 now for the first time since all the way back on December 5th. So Rockford certainly trending up after this IceHogs team has battled with so many injuries and a lot of call-ups because the Blackhawks have had so many injuries as well. Heading into that Texas weekend, the Blackhawks had 9 guys on injured reserve, and that's not even counting guys like Samuel Savoie or Luke Philp, who are technically on IR with season-ending, or not season-ending injuries, but long-term injuries. I'm just talking about guys who had played with the Blackhawks this year. 9 of them were on IR. 8 of them were forwards, and so you had a lot of forwards getting called up from Rockford, guys like Joey Anderson, Cole Gutman going back up. Boris Kachuk came down a little bit, then was pulled right back into the fray for Chicago. And there have been others that have come up and down as well. Brett Seney, our guest last week, like we said, being one of them. But the IceHogs have been able to weather the storm a little bit after they lost a few games in a row back in December. And now heading into this weekend against Grand Rapids, the IceHogs have points in 8 of their last 11 contests. So it's not just this 3-game sample size in January. This is dating back even into December when Rockford was dealing with all those call-ups and roster changes and the like. Talking about roster changes, our guest here, Luke Philp, we're expecting to get him back in February. At least that's what the release said when Philp originally got hurt this past offseason. And so that's kind of the timetable that the IceHogs are expecting Philp's recovery to follow. And if he does come back sometime in February, That's going to be like getting a trade deadline acquisition added to your team. So that's going to be a huge boost to this Rockford group, except obviously you don't have to give anything up for him in the trade market because he's just coming off of that injured list. And one note on that as well for Philp is that he is on a National Hockey League contract with the Chicago Blackhawks, and he is a Blackhawks player until otherwise noted. So there's no guarantee that he even ever comes to Rockford this season. He could come off IR and potentially just stay with the Blackhawks. However, he did play most of the year. Last year in the AHL, he spent most of his career, virtually all of it, in the American Hockey League. So just kind of judging off of past data, he feels like a guy who could be an impact player in Rockford if the Blackhawks don't need him coming down the stretch. The Blackhawks also picked up a couple of guys either via trade or via waiver pickups. If you look at the last couple weeks, Rem Pitlick was acquired via trade from the Pittsburgh Penguins organization. The Blackhawks threw a 7th-round pick towards the Penguins in exchange for Pitlick, who at the time of the trade was leading the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in scoring. The IceHogs have not seen Pitlick yet, and he's up with the Blackhawks waiting for his opportunity in the National Hockey League. He's been back and forth between the AHL and the NHL throughout his career. And then the Blackhawks also, via waivers, added Zach Sanford from the Arizona Coyotes organization. So there are two guys right there as well who have been playing a lot in the American Hockey League these last couple of years of their careers. And again, they're Blackhawks players until otherwise noted, but also maybe some candidates to potentially be sent down depending on rosters and depending how things shake out here in the coming down the stretch of the regular season. But just got some guys to keep an eye on. And again, they're Blackhawks players for now, and they'll be Blackhawks players until a transaction is made to intentionally send them to Rockford. But we'll watch them closely, and we'll continue to watch the Blackhawks closely as they make their way through the Central Division. It's been a rough ride with the Hawks up top in the NHL through the first half of the season or so as we sit right now in mid-January. But let's not waste any more time before we get to Luke Philp. Great chat with him. We go about 30 minutes or so. He takes us through his career a little bit, some of the decisions he made to play college and the like, and also where he's at in the recovery. We talk a lot about how things are going with that Achilles and what it's like to see Aaron Rodgers walking around on his brand new Achilles after a couple weeks after he got some experimental surgery. We go all over the map with the MVP from last season for the IceHogs, Luke Philp. We now get to welcome in the MVP from last season's IceHogs team, Luke Philp. Welcome on to Hog Talk. Glad we finally get to sit down with you and have a chat. I know you've been rehabbing here recently after the Achilles injury. Like, man, how's that going for you?
It's going good. It's it's been a long process, but it's starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, I guess. But overall good. It's been a lot of work and still have a lot of work yet, but I'm happy with how things have progressed.
But you still get to be around the team and like you're here in Rockford, you're around the guys and things like that. So how important is that to kind of, still be in the room with the fellas and stuff like that, even though you haven't been able to play yet this year?
Yeah, it's great to be around the guys. It's like there's turnover every year from team to team, so there was some new faces for myself this year. New guys to meet, and then obviously returning guys from last year. But it's been awesome to be around. I mean, you feel a little out of it. I mean, anyone who's suffered a long-term injury can probably attest to that. Is that you're not with the team on the road, you're not in those game environments, which is tough. But it's overall been great to be around them.
Yeah. You mentioned, being on the road and being in, the room with the guys. What's the thing that you miss the most while you've been out with injury? Is it something on the ice? Is it just being around the guys in the hotel and stuff like that and going to get into dinner after games? Or what's the thing that you miss the most right now that you can't do?
Yeah, I think playing for me, like when you don't play a game for a long time, you do start to miss it, and you definitely get that itch to get back in the lineup. And then, just like camaraderie with the guys on the road, bus trips, playing cards, dinners, like you said, all that stuff is a lot of fun.
Who's the best card player? I know you guys are always in the back of the bus kind of tearing it up a little bit, but and it's a pretty young group this year too.
Yeah.
So you don't have some of those vets that are playing cards.
Yeah.
But I know there's still a couple sharks out there, right?
Yeah, I haven't talked to those guys about the winless I don't know if they keep track of wins, but I mean, I think it'd be between Seeds and Gusty, who would be leading that right now.
Yeah.
Last year, it kind of the lead bounced around a lot, but I'd have to follow up with the guys.
Any of the guys a little sketchy in there? Maybe kind of skirting the rules a little bit, or doing something to get an edge.
I don't know. I don't know.
Can't
who they
call
got.
anybody out.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know who they have in the game this year. I think Tepe's playing. If I remember correctly, hearing from those guys. But
4th year for him here. I mean,
yeah,
he's only 22, but he feels like a vet,
yeah,
right?
I think Shorts, Andrew Perrott, he's hopped in a few games. You can ask him about the nickname Shorts, if he hasn't already told you, or you were there for that story.
I'm not sure I was. Can you fill us in, or is that not one you could tell on?
Oh yeah,
on
it's
this
fine.
program?
I'll let Perry fill that in if you ever get him on here.
All right, yeah.
Just ask him.
That's how we
about
get people to come back.
Yeah.
That's good podcasting
Perfect.
right there.
Yeah, but I got to follow up with the guys. I'd be excited to get back in that game, though.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of go back to the surgery and rehab, and you said it's going well. You're progressing. You're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, were there some days where you didn't see the light? Were there some tough days, some tough weeks? I'm guessing maybe at the start of this process.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? I was pretty positive with it. Tried to keep a positive mindset throughout, especially early on, but I kept running into people. They'd asked about my injury. I'd say, torn Achilles, right? And it's the same response every time. It's someone like, ooh, like, and then you kind of, as you go through it, you realize it's tough. There's a lot of days where it just doesn't feel good. It's like you're working through just a lot of soreness, a lot of, pain, I guess. So that's been hard for sure at different times. And then I guess just the overall duration of it, you're kind of going to be sidelined for at least 5 months minimum. I mean, hockey, it's easier to get back to playing hockey than, say, basketball or football.
Is that because your foot's in a boot?
Yeah, I think so. And I think just the overall mechanics of like jumping, sprinting, it's not as taxing in a skate. That's my understanding of it. Unless you get the Rodgers treatment, it looks like.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask about too.
Yeah.
So Aaron Rodgers, of course, NFL quarterback, gets like this experimental, futuristic surgery, right? And he's trying to come back after a couple months, and obviously he didn't.
Yeah.
But you're still hearing about that, right? And seeing that.
Yeah.
Did that kind of like pique your curiosity at all, or were you just pretty content to like use the tried and true surgery and take that normal path?
Yeah, it did for sure. I mean, I tore my Achilles, and then I got a surgeon set up back home in Edmonton, and then they just went through the surgery. I didn't know that there was different availabilities or different surgeries that you could get. I think his is still, the one that he got done is still pretty like experimental. It's not standard procedure, so it allows him to weight bear a little quicker. Is my understanding of it, which is why you saw him walking, putting weight on it pretty soon after getting surgery. And for myself, going through that and then seeing that after 2 weeks, I was kind of like, whoa, like,
come on,
yeah. So, because it took me quite a while to. I was able to get weight on it fairly quick, but the limp, I was walking with a limp for a long time, so. When I saw him, hobbling up and down the sidelines like a week or so after, it was interesting to see.
What do you think's been the hardest part of the process for you so far?
Yeah, that's hard. I'd say just strengthening the muscles right in and around that tendon. I'd say like physically, and then obviously the mental battle with it. I think I've done a pretty good job though, staying positive with it. I wanted to have that mindset of just kind of like, okay, I can dwell on this all the time, or I can seek different ways that I can improve, maybe focus more of my energy in areas that I haven't had time to really do with the grind of like a full season schedule and like everything you're doing every day. But yeah, that strength in and around that tendon area has been tough to to really improve. It takes a lot of time, and it's you kind of have to like grit through it.
And with the Achilles tendon, like it's what, around the heel and the ankle and stuff like that. So is it the hardest thing to do, like to push up basically with your foot, or what's the hardest thing to do, like mechanically, you think, and the thing that's limiting you?
Yeah, like a calf raise essentially, or getting on the ball of your foot. So anything on your toes, which you do everything athletically in the gym. So that's, I guess, why I get like football players and basketball players, like it takes them a little longer to come back to game action than a hockey player. But yeah, that was tough to get on the ball of your foot. And then like just anything dynamic, sprinting, jumping, that's going to be like the last to come. So I've been told. And I guess I'm kind of seeing that now as I get into 5-6 months since surgery.
What have you kind of learned, maybe about yourself or about the process, or so far as you've gone through these last couple months in the recovery?
Yeah, that I've learned that it's tough to come back. Or I mean, I haven't even experienced like in-game action with it yet, or really ramp things up on the ice. But yeah, it's a tough process with this particular injury. But I think I've learned to focus on just, like I said before, finding different ways that you can see positives out of something that isn't so great. It was obvious. I was really disappointed when it happened, like a month and a half before camp. I was looking forward to, coming in and having a good start and playing well this year. But yeah, trying to find different areas of my game and just my overall life that you can spend more time focusing on and improving on.
And I want to kind of go back to that. It's a month and a half, 2 months before camp. Like, you're the reigning team MVP from last season. How frustrating was it in that moment? Like, were you just working out and then you heard a pop and you realized right away, and then it all like kind of hit you, or was there a delay?
Yeah, I think there was a delay. When it actually happened, I was in the gym doing a sprint, and it was my last rep of the day, so that was pretty deflating, I guess. But then, like I said, it took a little bit of time to really realize how long it's gonna be and all that. But it was super disappointing. I was having a good summer. I was on the ice a lot. I was feeling great in the gym and on the ice. Thought I had a really strong finish to the season last year. So yeah, like I said, was getting excited to ramp up before camp. So that was disappointing.
It was exciting to watch you play last year, obviously playing a lot with guys like, David Gust and Brett Seney, two guys that you mentioned, and they're back here again this year. So there's a chance for you to reunite with those guys. How exciting is that to know that when you do come back, you can potentially play with some of those guys that you had such good chemistry with last year in a season that you were setting career highs? Yeah,
it was great playing with those guys last year. They're both awesome players. You can see they're having good seasons again this year. And like you said, building the chemistry. We played together most of last year, and we had some success. So it was, we had all signed before the summer, before going to free agency. So it was exciting. Obviously, we're trying to put our best foot forward and make the Blackhawks and stick around as long as we can there. But if we were, get sent back down to Rockford, that you have good players that you already know, and you don't have to wouldn't take as long, I don't think, to build that chemistry. So sucks, but looking forward to getting back in game action and trying to figure out the rest of this rehab and get back on the ice and get moving forward here.
I know I asked you this question. I know I asked Gusty and Scenes this question probably a million times last year as well. But what's it like playing with those two out there? You guys were wildly effective, and it wasn't always you two or you three on that top line, but a lot of times it was, and a lot of times you guys were scoring. Yeah,
for sure. They're great players. Like I said, I think Gusty was, at least last year, a little bit more of the shooter. He's got a great release, deceptive speed too, and then makes great plays, carries the puck really well, and both of them are fast, right? And I think that's how we played last year. We were pretty quick, and that made it tough for teams to defend. I think when you watch their games and watching them this year, I think Gusty said it last year. We all play with a bit of sandpaper to our game too. Like as far as we're not just small skilled players. We work for the things we get to out there, and we take pride in that.
Yeah. You also made your way up to the National Hockey League last year. Got your first NHL game in Vancouver, right?
Yeah, first one in Vancouver.
And you knew that was coming. Like, you knew you were in the lineup ahead of time, right? So did that make it easier, you think, knowing that you're going to play? Or, like, would you rather have been kind of surprised, which I think you were for that Calgary game, right?
Yeah, so, no, it wasn't easier. I was pretty nervous. But it was great of Luke to let me know that I was in the lineup. Got my family, my girlfriend out there to see my first game, which was awesome. A pretty cool experience. Took it all in, and then, like you said, the next game in Calgary a couple days later, hometown game for me. I didn't think I was playing. Ended up being added to the lineup last minute, and I didn't have the nerves throughout the day. I guess it was just kind of.
Because weren't you out at dinner with some buddies or something like that?
I was gonna go out with some of the Wranglers guys. Yeah, a couple of guys that I'd planned on going to eat, and then I'd throw my suitcase and stuff on the bus. I was going in my suit, and then I'd go to the game because we were responsible to get ourselves to the game. And then I had to text them. I was like, "Can't go, boys. I'm playing." So, and they were like, "Okay, yeah, no problem." So. I think a couple of them actually came to the game, but it worked out. I feel like not many nerves. Played well there. Got my first point.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
Was somebody sick that night, or what was the reasoning? Do you remember?
I think Taves was a late scratch,
Yeah.
so he was supposed to play, and then he was a late scratch.
So you get your first NHL point in that game. Nice assist. Was that Kurashev or Kachuk who had that one? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it was Kachuk.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then obviously you're from Canmore, so what, like an hour outside of Calgary? So hometown game for you. Like, were you able to get everybody there that you wanted to have there in time?
I think lots of people, like friends and family, had bought tickets already, just wanting to come. So once they heard I was called up and going to be on that road trip and potentially in that game, I don't think my parents were going to come because they found out I wasn't playing. And then I told them I'm in, and like I said, the Hawks did a great, awesome job. It was really nice of them. They got everybody tickets last minute because I didn't have time to send out all my tickets.
Put in the request,
and it worked out. It was nice. Yeah.
So you're playing, at the Saddle Dome in Calgary. Like, was there a time where you could kind of take it in and like look up and be like, I'm playing for my hometown NHL team, or playing against them right now, but I'm in that building as an NHL player? Yeah, that was cool. I played a lot in that building actually before, so I'd say more of the moment was my first game being in the NHL in Vancouver. I hadn't played much. I don't think I'd ever played in that building. But I played junior in Kootenay and played against the Hitmen all the time in the Saddle Dome. So that one was a little. And then I played there with the COVID season when we were still Stockton Heat, but we were up in Calgary for the year. So it wasn't as I had some familiarity there. But I think Kane scored a pretty vintage Kane goal in Vancouver, and had a celebration that you've seen so many times before, and that was pretty cool to experience. That felt like the NHL, right? That was and that one happened in Vancouver. Yeah. So that first night was kind of the big one, and then the game with your first pro point in Calgary. Did you feel more established in that game? Did you feel like more confident being in that home? I don't say home barn, but a place you'd been before, and you've already have a game under your belt.
Yeah, I wouldn't say established, but
Sure.
but confident. Yeah, like I think I got into the game a little better in that one and played a little better myself, and settled down a bit.
Were you a Flames fan growing up?
Yeah.
So
Started off Leafs fan when I was young, and then transitioned to a Calgary fan, being close by. Yeah.
So being a Flames fan and stuff, like you signed an NHL contract with that team. Like how cool was that for you? And being around the NHL club and camps and preseason games and stuff like that. I mean, what was that like for you, wearing that Flames C on your chest for those?
Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, like going back, playing in school at U of A, and then finding out that there were some teams interested, and Calgary was one of them, and ended up signing with them. Is pretty cool experience. I never played a game with them, but I enjoyed my time there, and it was great. And like you said, hometown team. It was pretty fun to be a part of.
I want to get to U of A here in a sec, but I also want to talk about free agency after those couple years with the Calgary organization. You come to the Blackhawks. Obviously, you signed another contract at the very end of last season. So, what is free agency like for those of us that don't really understand? Like, coming after your first contract, were you apprehensive? Was there like a fear, or were you excited for a new chapter to potentially, turn the page and join a new organization?
Yeah, I think a little bit of everything. I think I was excited at first, but then realized it's not that fun to go through. That's my personal opinion of it. I mean, it was a little more nerve-wracking and kind of. You're just kind of anxious about where things are going to go and how things are going to go.
You're just like calling your agent every day or texting them every hour?
You're in communication with them, and then it happened pretty fast for me. He was telling me different teams that might be interested, and then they're not. We had a good season with in Stockton the year before, and I had a good season there. And so we had gone pretty far in the playoffs. We made it to the conference finals, so whenever you play deep, that's going to help everyone on the team's cause for getting a contract the following season. It played out pretty fast for me. All of a sudden, it was a week before free agency, and then reaching out to other people who'd gone through it a bunch. They told me through their experiences, you kind of want to get it done quicker. That's what I was told, and going through it once, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of guys that you would have known at the time you joined the organization. Reese Johnson, the guy you played with in Red Deer, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you kind of reach out to him at all, saying like, "Hey, I'm going to be a Blackhawk here. I'm going to be part of the organization."
Yeah.
What's it like?
No, I didn't. I didn't reach out to Reese. I played with him for half a season in Red Deer. I remember linking up with him at camp though, and it was cool to see him again. I spoke to Hagel a little bit because he was in the organization that year, and then he got traded, I think, that year. So then I signed with the Hawks, and then I saw him in the summer and talked to him a little bit about it, joked about it. But no, it just kind of felt right at the time, like kind of weighed different options, different opportunity, like what might be a good fit. And ended on Chicago. And
you're moving back to a cold weather spot too, because being in Stockton as a Western Canadian, was that a little weird for you with the palm trees and stuff all around?
Yeah, for sure. It's Stockton was nice. The weather was, it was warm. Yeah, so you could golf. November, it had like a little bit of a winter season, but like no snow, like just like overcast. And
now it's not like Southern California, right?
No,
like
Northern
it's just
Cal.
outside of San Fran.
Yeah, so it's east of San Fran, and then it's south of Sacramento. So it's kind of.
You're a pretty laid back guy. You'd probably fit in with the Cali vibes there, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was fun to be there because I think golf was the main thing. We had a good setup for golf. We had a golf league when we were playing down there, set up with our team. So. We played a lot early, and then once you get into the grind of the season, it's tougher to get out there. But that makes things better for sure.
You Alberta boys, we have a couple sticks on the team between you and Howie. Apparently, is the real deal from what I've heard on
I'm
the course.
sure.
But
did he talk up his game, Howie?
Yeah, I think the last 30 minutes of our podcast was about his club championship and how it was taken from him. But yeah, he's big on the course as well. What's your handicap at?
I was playing a bit this summer. Not as much as I.
There's a lot of good golf around here in Rockford.
Yeah. We played a bit last year too. That was fun. I wouldn't even say I have a handicap right now. I didn't play enough, but I've got it down to about a 6 or 7.
Okay.
But that's not legit. Whenever I play,
you're breaking 80, right?
Yeah, I can break 80 and play good scores, but I don't I don't plug in my score every time.
Your tour card yet?
No, yeah. So I mean, if I want to get a legit cap, I got to put it in a little bit more, But
Yeah.
I always tell people 6 or 7 if I'm on,
Yeah.
I don't want to be like.
You're a sandbagger.
Yeah.
I can tell.
No.
I can tell. You're going out there. You're taking money from me for sure.
I played in a men's league this summer though. It was fun.
Who else is good on the team?
On the team, well,
Or
Howie
here in
is good. I'll
Rockford,
give
yeah.
Howie that. He can hit the ball a mile. I've played with him a couple times last year. He's a good golfer. Brett's good. Scenes.
Really?
Yeah, he's good. He was, I don't know if he told you, but he was like, he played golf competitively when he was young and was pretty good at it.
No.
So that's
wow. You skipped over to that.
Yeah. It didn't
Son
come
of a
out.
gun.
Hey, humble guy. Didn't want to bring it up, but I think Dave's good too. I've never played with him, but I think he's good.
God, some
trying
guys
to
have
think.
it all, right?
Yeah.
Can score, can play golf, good looking, probably plays the guitar or something like that,
I'm
What's the best part of your game? That's something I asked Howie when we recorded earlier.
best part of my game.
Yeah.
Iron play and putting.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't get off the tee. I struggle with my driver.
But a technician around the greens.
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
good, decent putter, and then I hit a ball pretty well with my irons.
Well, let's get back to the hockey. I wanted to get back into kind of U of A a little bit,
Yeah.
right? So you go to the University of Alberta, 3 years, right?
Yeah,
There?
3 years there.
So you go to U of A, which in my thinking it would be kind of a sin as a kid from right outside of Calgary. You got the University of Calgary right there. Like, was that a difficult decision for you not to go to what do they call it? They call it UC there or
UFC,
UFC?
yeah,
Okay.
UFC, yeah.
But where did you kind of visit around, and how did you make your decision to go play for what, the Pandas out there?
Pandas is the
That's the
girl
women's team?
yeah,
Okay.
and then we're the Bears. Honestly, when I was 20, coming out of Red Deer, we had played in the Memorial Cup as a host, and I was just didn't really know anything. I was kind of like, oh, maybe I'll go play pro, but I didn't have many offers. I went to San Jose's camp, and then nothing came of it, so I was enrolled in U of A. How the decision came, I toured a few schools, just ended up the ones around Alberta, Calgary, U of A, and U of A had a pretty unmatched program at that. I mean, other programs have come a long ways and are good as well, but U of A's kind of reputation for winning and you can still develop while you're there, which I found out. It's that was kind of the misconception of CIS, is that you kind of like go there and you're
It's like the end of
your
your
career.
hockey
And
career,
I think with myself, my brother, and there's lots of guys we play against now that you can treat it as develop there, get better, and then play pro after if you weren't quite ready to do so once you're 20 coming out of the Western League. How I chose it, just kind of felt right. Felt like my best chance to keep getting better.
Were your parents a little bummed out that you're moving a little further away? That you weren't going
No,
to play for
you
the
know
hometown
what?
team?
My parents have been able to adjust it. I've been out of the house since I was 15, so it kind of they're used to it. I'm sure they would love to have me close by, or closer the better, but they understand as well.
Coming through U of A and the Canadian collegiate ranks, like there are some guys who go on to play pro hockey in the NHL, but there aren't that many, right? Like, were there guys that you had that you were looking up to that were ahead of you that had come up through maybe U of A or a similar path, I guess, and reached the NHL?
Yeah, the main one that everyone talked about before I got to school at U of A is Derek Ryan. He's made a pretty nice career for himself in the NHL, and he didn't come to I don't think he played his first game until he was 28 or 9 in the NHL. He was over in Europe after playing in U of A, and then signed in Carolina. But he was a good player for the Bears, and he went to school there, got his degree, and that was kind of the name that was thrown around when I was getting recruited. But then there's lots of other guys along the way that have signed pro and gone to play in Europe, or elsewhere. But I think he's the main one that has kind of made the best NHL career for himself, and he's still kicking, doing pretty well with the Oilers. So,
do you see how things have kind of transformed here at the American level with NIL and stuff like that, and think like, man, why didn't we have that when I was back in school?
NIL, what's NIL?
Name, image, and likeness. So is this a little off your radar?
Yeah,
here? 'Cause
yeah.
You have this here in America where now college athletes can basically get paid through collectives and things like that. Like I don't know what it was like in Canada, but there used to be strict rules about like not paying athletes who were in college and stuff like that.
Right.
But you could have been getting some change there. You could have been getting some checks in the mail if they had the NIL in Canada back in the day. But,
I mean, college sports are quite a bit bigger in the States. Obviously, there's just more money. Everything's just bigger. But I was able to use my scholarship money, which is great, that you get from playing the CHL. So I don't know. Lots of people have been able to use that along the line, and that's nice to have.
Yeah. Well, you talked about going to like San Jose's camp, and they were preaching Derek Ryan to you, and obviously you had a great junior career as well. But at what point did you start believing that you could play in the NHL?
So probably my second year, the end of it, I was just ready to move on, I think, from the hockey. I felt like I was enjoying myself, like the life. Being in school was great, made great friends there. But hockey-wise, I felt like I needed to move on. So my third year, I was playing pretty well, and then my agent said there was some interest. And for me, I wanted to. My kind of mindset was that if I wasn't going to leave school unless I had an NHL deal on the table, because I didn't want to. I figured that I would finish my degree, and then there might still be opportunity for, say, an American League deal or something like that. But when I was offered an NHL deal, I thought to myself, okay,
here we go.
I'll leave school now.
Exactly. So how was that third year then, kind of knowing that you're like looking for a reason to jump, basically? Was it hard to kind of focus that third year, or was it just kind of back to business?
No, I don't know. I just had a good season, and I mean, my mindset was still, I'll play pro at some point, whether it's now or in a year or so when I graduate. But I think hockey-wise, I was ready to move on. Yeah.
Big rivalry between Calgary and Alberta, obviously.
Yeah.
What were those games like? And would you guys get like pretty ruckus crowds for those? I'm guessing?
So our rink, Claire Drake Arena at U of A. It's an old school rink, but it gets a great atmosphere. The student section gets going. It's kind of, fans are right on top of you. The ice is like square, but I hated it.
Square? What do you mean?
Like the boards are like behind the net. It's not like, it seems a little square.
Oh, so it's just like a shallower angle or something like
I don't
that?
think it's much difference, but
It's enough that you noticed it, though.
Oh, I don't think other teams like playing there, but I didn't like it at first, learned to love it. And it's fun to play, especially against UFC. UFC, we'll get good crowds and rowdy crowds, and yeah, it's fun.
Did they ever give it to you when you were coming back home and you're playing against Calgary in your hometown?
No, not really. Their crowds weren't as good as ours. That's for sure.
Oh, there you go. Well, you come from a hockey family as well. Obviously, you're one of the middle of three. Is that right? And your younger brother Noah was with the Edmonton organization for a little bit.
Yeah.
Saw that he had retired. Was it before this past year or before this current year?
Yeah.
I don't know what you can say about that, but I'm sure it was difficult to watch him make that decision, and it probably took a lot of courage from him as well.
Yeah, it took a ton of courage. It's not easy, especially when you have a season like he did. Everyone's expecting you to just keep playing, right? I mean, he had a great season last year. Doesn't surprise me at all. He's a beast, and he's a good player, and he just didn't want to keep playing. I guess it was his own personal decision. I think the main thing stemmed from him just wanting to be closer to friends and family, and it's a grind. Like the lifestyle in pro hockey, it's tough. You live away from home. You're moving all different places, right? It's not easy. So for him, it was important to step away and do other things, and proud of him for doing it. Because it's not an easy thing to do. Yeah.
No, I mean, good on him for making sure his priorities are in order, and it had to be hard to walk away from. But seeing going back and kind of looking through the articles, it seemed like everybody in the Edmonton organization had nothing but good things to say about him and wished him well, and then the fans did the same.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I think they obviously wanted him to stay and probably tried to convince him to a little bit, but Noah's an awesome guy, and he's a great player too, and I think they respected how he handled it. I think he handled it the right way. He didn't wait until camp and say, "Oh, I'm not coming." He told them at the end of the year that, "Look, I've been thinking about this for a long time. It wasn't just a decision he made overnight. It was kind of on his mind for a while, I think so." That's
well, you got your older brother, it was Simon?
Yeah.
So middle of three, is that why you're so good in front of the net? Because you're always battling those two guys in the basement or something?
Oh, yeah. We grew up playing. Noah was a little bit... Me and Simon were closer in age, so we were only a year apart. He's a 94, or a year and a half apart, and then Noah was a couple of years younger, so... we battled when we were young, for sure. Mini sticks all the time, friends over. Competitive.
No sisters for you guys?
No sisters.
Oh, so your
fights.
mom was just
she went
bandaging everybody up every day.
Yeah, we had a full room dedicated to mini sticks, so that's pretty sweet. But Simon played as well. Simon played until he was 20. He played junior A in Canmore. He was a good player too. He went through early hip surgery when he was young, and he battled some injuries, but ultimately retired after junior, and now owns a business in Canmore. But
doing okay.
Yeah, he's doing good, and hockey always in the family. My dad played. He didn't play at any high level, but he always loved it, and was our coach growing up, and was really involved. He was a really good coach. So, hockey in the family.
Yeah. Was your dad the one where you guys all got the love from then?
I think so, yeah. I think he kind of got us into it. We'd always go on to the outdoor rinks and stuff like that, and Dad was I think it was super helpful having him as a coach, because he was a good coach, and having him around all the time. And me and Simon would play on the same team pretty much every year growing up, so it was good.
And that probably helped you, right? Because you're playing with guys like a little bit older.
Yeah, I played up in Adam, I think, and maybe Pewee. So for a couple of years, I played level up to be on his team. Probably helped my development a little bit, and it was nice to have Dad as a coach and brother on the team.
Well, Philp, we're excited to see you get back out there here, hopefully pretty soon. We're recording this in early January, and we're hoping that I think they said February was when you're expected back. I know it's not always an exact science with that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but hopefully it's not too much longer before you're out there. But thank you for coming on here, and glad we're able to chat.
Yeah, thanks, Fultz, for having me. This was a lot of fun, and yeah, I hope that I can get back here skating soon and be back in the lineup sooner than later.
First like in-person podcast here.
First in person, yeah, yeah, with the mics and everything. This is great. I love it. This is good, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, all right, you're a pro, man. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Fultz.
Those Western Canadians are a special breed. Luke Philp, so down to earth and so much fun in the room. The IceHogs are anxiously awaiting his return, hopefully sometime in the not-so-distant future. But we wish him the best of luck in his recovery and hope that we can see him on the ice here very soon. Coming up this weekend, the IceHogs are actually back at home at the BMO Center. Rockford hasn't been back at home here in the state line since the 31st of December, New Year's Eve, when the IceHogs took down the Milwaukee Admirals in regulation. Friday night is a $2 beer night against the Chicago Wolves. Rockford has not beaten Chicago yet this year. The Wolves are 3-0, a perfect 3-0-0 against Rockford so far this campaign. I think one of our bold predictions earlier in the show a couple months back was that the IceHogs were going to have double-digit wins against Chicago. Well, that's now impossible because the Wolves have already won 3 of the 9 games against Rockford so far this year. Then on Saturday, the Iowa Wild come to town, and it's Autism Awareness Night here at the BMO Center. We've got some special autism awareness jerseys. It's going to be a blackout look from head to toe with just kind of some blue and some red stripes across the chest with yellow numerals. So some special jerseys are going to be auctioned off throughout the game. Some of them will be auctioned off after as well, but you'll want to try and bid on those jerseys through the Dash Auction app. You can get to that through the IceHogs mobile app. So definitely take a look at those jerseys and see if you want to bid on any throughout the night, because there's going to be a few that are going to be basically handed right off of the players' backs to the winners after the game on Saturday. So it's a great cause. We're helping out the Easter Seals Foundation with the proceeds from that jersey auction. Glad to partner with them for another year here in the state line. And it's going to be a really special night to spread awareness for autism and celebrate some special individuals as well. But 2 games coming up this weekend for the Hogs here in the state line against Chicago and against Iowa. If you cannot make it out to the BMO Center, and we kind of understand why, it's cold, it's snowy outside, you might not want to leave your living room, you might want to stay snuggled up in your blankets on the couch. Well, that's all right. You can listen to me and tune in on either the 365 on AHL TV or on Mixlr. And when I say the 365, in case you missed it, that is what 19.2 used to be branded as. It used to be 19.2 Circle TV. You can still find that on the 19.2 channel. It's just now branded as the 365 if you're watching at home. So be sure to tune in tonight or join us here at the BMO, because we're going to have a lot of fun on Friday and Saturday. But we're glad that you listened in to our interview with Luke Philp. We will catch you next time on the next episode of Hawk Talk.